that every 500 years, without exception, the world's center of power shifts. And what if I told you that right now, in our lifetime, this 500-year cycle is ending again? This isn't a theory. This is history repeating itself, again and again and again. Today, we break down the 500-year super empire cycle, how Egypt, Persia, Rome, the Islamic Golden Age, the Mongols, the Ottomans, Britain, and the United States all followed the same path. Human history shows a clear and consistent pattern. Every 400 to 600 years, global power moves to a new center. The sequence is shockingly consistent. First, there was Egypt, the masters of agriculture, architecture, and centralized state power. Then came Persia, which took control of the Silk Road, the world's greatest logistic system. After them, Rome dominated the Mediterranean through law, infrastructure, and military organization. As Rome fell, the Islamic Golden Age rose, leading the world in science, navigation, mathematics, and medicine. Then came the Ottoman Empire, controlling the vital trade choke points between East and West. They were followed by the British Empire, powered by the Industrial Revolution and naval dominance. And finally, the American Empire, built on oil, dollar dominance, technology, global finance, and military reach. Different cultures, different religions, different systems, but one repeating pattern. Power rises, it expands, it dominates, it overstretches, it declines, and then it shifts. And every single one of these shifts is driven by three fundamental forces: technology, trade routes, and demographic cycles. When these three forces align, a new superpower emerges. When they break, the empire collapses. So, how do these super empires rise in the first place? Well, every rising empire does three things better than all of its competitors. First, they master a breakthrough technology. Egypt had irrigation and sophisticated stone engineering. Persia mastered long-distance administration to manage its vast territories. Rome perfected road building and military discipline. Third, and this is crucial, their population is young, growing, and ambitious. A rising empire always has a wave of young workers, young soldiers, and young innovators. They are the engine of growth and expansion. Conversely, a declining empire almost always has an aging population. Every single superpower rises because its demographics are in its favor. It's a non-negotiable part of the equation. But just as there's a formula for the rise, there's an equally predictable formula for the fall. The end of every empire looks remarkably similar. First, they suffer from military overextension. Empires expand until the cost of maintaining their borders and influence becomes greater than the benefit they get from it. Rome's borders became too large to defend. Britain's colonies became too expensive to administer. America currently has over 750 military bases worldwide, and the cost of maintaining that footprint is simply enormous. Second, they experience economic exhaustion. Every empire, without fail, eventually spends more than it earns. Rome debased its currency by mixing cheap metals with its silver coins. Spain created massive inflation by flooding Europe with gold from the New World. Third, they face a demographic slowdown. Birth rates fall, the workforce shrinks. The spirit of innovation that once defined them begins to slow down. And as the population ages, the tax base that supports the entire imperial structure begins to collapse. And finally, the nail in the coffin. A new power, armed with a new technology, appears on the scene. Persia replaced Egypt. Rome replaced Persia. The Islamic world filled the scientific vacuum left by Rome's stagnation. History is crystal clear on this. A new empire rises precisely when the old one loses its edge. And we are living through that exact moment once again. Let's look at the cycle today. America rose to prominence in the late 1800s, completely dominated the 20th century, and reached its absolute peak between 1945 and the year 2000. That is roughly 150 years of dominance, which is exactly in line with previous empires during their peak zone of influence. Now, look at the indicators. Debt is at historic highs. The population is aging rapidly. The dollar's dominance is weakening as other countries seek alternatives. Industrial production has declined, with manufacturing moving overseas. The military is overextended across the globe, and there is deep internal political fracture. This is exactly what the end of a 500-year cycle looks like. So, the big question is, who is next? There are two primary possibilities. The first scenario is an Asia power shift. The next 500-year cycle may center around Asia for the first time since the Mongol era. The main candidates are obvious. China, with its massive manufacturing base, population scale, modern tech infrastructure, and global projects like the Belt and Road Initiative. Then there's India, with its young, growing workforce, a rising economic power, and a huge demographic advantage. You could even look at East Asia as a single block, with China, Korea, and Japan dominating the global supply chain. Together, Asia controls 60% of the global population, 35% of global GDP, and rising, the world's largest manufacturing ecosystem, and the world's fastest-growing megacities. They are at the forefront of electronics, robotics, and AI hardware. Asia becoming the new center of the world would not be an anomaly. It would simply be a return to the historical norm. Instead of one superpower, we get a system of several major regional powers, all balancing each other out. So what does this cycle really mean? The 500-year cycle doesn't predict a fiery collapse or the end of the world. It predicts change. Every single empire in history believed it would last forever. Every empire thought it was special, that it was different. Every empire claimed that the rules of history didn't apply to them, and every single one of them was wrong. The cycle is not emotional, it's not political, it's not ideological. It's mechanical. Technology shifts, trade routes shift, demographics shift, and as a result, power shifts. We are living inside one of those great transitions right now, the end of the American cycle, and the beginning of whatever comes next. Empires don't die because someone comes along and destroys them. Empires die because the world changes, and they fail to change with it. The 500-year cycle is not about doom. It's about evolution. Every collapse is also a reset. Every decline opens the door for a new rise. Every end is simply the beginning of a new chapter in the grand story of human civilization. And we are the ones lucky enough to be watching the page turn. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos breaking down the forces that shape our world.